Hey, and here's the continuation of working on Noah. Hopefully, the thunder in the background's not coming through. So, the starting bit, I'm just going through. I liked a certain design, and I'm kind of like just blowing it up bigger so I can get in more detail and kind of like plan things out. And this is 6 times the speed. So, at first, I'm just kind of copying the thumbnail, but trying to think of um, like the small versus the medium versus the large shapes. I didn't like that circular shape in the middle of that major triangular shape, so I brought it into this logo design that I had. And when I got this far, I was like, okay, how does he fly around? Because he's supposed to be like hovering in this case. So I was thinking either these fans or, but since this is sci-fi, maybe this like anti-grav elements that are a part of it. So I was thinking of these like holes that are cut out, and then there's the sphere that's the head, and trying to break up the big shapes into like smaller shapes in order to kind of like get some interest in there. And I liked how this is going from the get-go, and it has this like elegance to it, some sleekness. There's the thin blade areas at the trim as it gets like a little thicker. And at this point, I was trying to think of, okay, how does this move around? So here's a couple of sketches I start doing from kind of a front three-quarter view to get a little bit more of that depth visualized in there. And I added some lines onto the sphere to get a better idea of what's up and down and the sides, the orientation of it. And from here, this is where I start thinking, okay, like, what about its movement overall? So the ball is like a gyro. It will stay kind of upright as the rest of the body swivels around in order for the movement. So here I'm kind of sketching out as it's doing kind of a U-turn as the body of like the big wing that I'm calling that like the big triangular shape or diamond shape kind of like swivels and spins around. And the smaller triangular like fins, they kind of um, are for balancing for the most part. So I'm sketching out with a light 2H pencil just so it's very, very light and very easy to erase. And I don't even have to bother erasing it once I ink it up, just in order to kind of get the inks to like pop overall. And I'm using a waterproof pen here because I end up going over with a brush pen that has a watered down Sumi ink in order to kind of just like lay out some values. Throwing in some arrows to kind of showcase to myself the rotation and the movement, or going from pose A to pose B to pose C. So here's putting down just like a base value. I just think it just like it helps pop a little bit more. And thinking of like a little darker area, so I'm just going over it with the exact same brush pen a little bit more. I grab a piece of paper and I slide it underneath this page because I was thinking, okay, I'll grab a Copic marker and just kind of like get some glow on what I would think it would be. Uh, I didn't quite like it. I'm actually enjoying watercolors a lot more than Copics. But once that design was done, I'm like, okay, let's bring it into Blender and 3D model it in order to make my life easier for the drawing side of things in the storyboard. And I might even just do exports out of Blender with the poses and just bring that into Storyboard Pro in this case. But I think for the future episodes, I might actually storyboard directly in Blender so I can actually make use of the model with it and I can just edit it on the fly. So I'm just doing simple box modeling techniques with boxes, spheres, uh, dissolving edges, moving vertices around, scaling, snapping to vertices, using inset faces, extrudes, insert edge loops, and scaling down bits. And I'm pretty sure there's like an easier way in order to kind of round out this piece, but I'm old school. And so I figured, like I could, it's just a little small section. It's not really worth doing all this like craziness. So here I'm starting to think of like the front plating that will have the cameras for Noah so that it can visualize. I'm kind of playing around, okay, what sphere would break down a little bit better because I don't like how the poles look with the main sphere. So I was trying the other sphere, the triangulation sphere, and it was very wonky. It had like some pretty broad flat edges. So I went back with the icosphere. I think it's the icosphere. And so I'm starting to bevel in order to keep some sharpness when I add subdivision because I want to make sure it's smoother. But I like leaving things very blocky and simple at first, so it's very easy to edit. And I end up doing a better job in the back area of cleaning up it was the front area of cleaning up the intersection. So I had to like mimic that for the back area. And it just makes life a lot easier for selections and the extra bevels in order to maintain that sharpness with the subdivision surface. There's some little like edges that kind of like shift around a little, but I'm like, this is just a personal project. It's for storyboarding. It's not going to be used for like crazy close-ups, so whatever. So here I'm creating cylinders in order to use a Boolean in order to cut out those holes. And you're going to see me actually undo this work and fill those in and then recut those holes later on because I still have like some bigger elements to change and adjust onto the big fins and even the small fins. Actually, no, it's just the big fins. But here I'm just blocking things out, deleting polygon faces that are not going to be visible anymore, and using inset faces in order to create like the lens rim. And I use a squashed sphere in order to be the actual lens piece itself in these later on. You can see that happening right now. And whenever I'm doing lenses or anything that has, or eyeballs, or anything that has like a round directional face, I usually point the pole in that direction. And the back, I was like, okay, you know what? Like, I didn't design this, but it'd be nice for the sphere to have something extra that I can kind of hide that ugly pole flattening. So I end up building that into part of like the anti-grav system as well. And that last little bit you just saw me do, I was just with the subdivide surface, I end up deleting the back half of that cylinder for the main frame for the lenses. Here I'm connecting vertices just to kind of line them up. And yeah, I still have some n-gons here and I'm like, I'm not using this for film really, and I'm not using it for a game engine. It's just for stills. So like, who cares? But I end up later on getting rid of the n-gons and subdividing them with the multi-cut tool. Oh, this is called multi-cut in Maya. I always forget what it's called in Blender. It's the knife tool, I think, or something like that. So here you can see me getting rid of the holes that I made earlier. And I just only really worry about the one side at a certain point, delete the half, and then reapply a mirror modifier just to make life a lot easier. Yeah, I was having issues with cutting those out, so I used the fill hole tool instead and making some adjustments. So what I'm like the reason why I went back to do this, there's that extra kind of like groove that flows along the body. And I'm thinking of, okay, how can I get some edges in there in order to create a bevel and cut that groove in. So that's what you see me doing right now. And I add in an extra bevel edge loop in there through the bevel edit mode or the edit panel and just scale that in to the center a little bit. And here I'm just kind of cleaning things up, going through and merging areas. And I wanted to get on the inside. I was thinking even in the inside of the big body having that anti-grav strip. It's not just the spheres, and I think it would look cool having that like sci-fi glow kind of coming through even in those areas. And now I'm ready to go back and cut those holes back into that big main body fin. Again, just using the Boolean modifier and just cleaning up some of these edges and loose vertices. I start cleaning up with the one, I believe it's here where I end up deleting half and, or very soon. Yeah, there we go. And I end up doing it again later on anyways. So now I'm thinking of the inside of those cylindrical spaces. And I didn't want it right in the center, so I'm moving it kind of on the third, on the close to the back, or when the fin flips down the bottom, just so that there's kind of a front and back directional kind of vibe. Because of these holes in the fins where there's like a thick area and a thin area, I had to make some adjustments and making sure that the geometry doesn't like crash or collide through each other. I was thinking of like what else should I add in there, and I was kind of like happy with the way it is. Uh, I might revisit this later on if it ends up becoming more fully animated. So now I'm starting to get into the UV unwrapping. So as I prep everything up, everything gets the same material, and I add in a color grade just so I can see how the texture is stretching. And I'm used to like old school UV unwrapping, so I was like, you know what? I'll try the smart UV unwrapping. I didn't like it because it's just like so many pieces that weren't really necessary, and it it didn't flow because so like how the model is set up, I wanted the grid to flow like top to bottom, like vertically and horizontally if you're looking straight on the model, not at like these angles. And so that's why I was like pulling them out, rotating them around. And I was experimenting with some of the other UV unwrapping menu items in order to see if it auto detects the directional positioning of the model for UV unwrapping. And here I'm pulling the pieces out and realigning, and I'm just like, you know what? Like enough of this. Let's go old school. It's going to be quicker for me. So I just do a UV project based on the camera positioning, and then I just make my seams. So I'm marking a lot of seams at any of those like big changes in planes, and I'm planning ahead as well because I've done this enough times of keeping certain pieces together. The lenses, I realized I still had the back face, the back half of the cylinder that was skewed. Well, no, scaled. But it was never going to see the light of day, so I was like, let's delete them. I ended up applying the subdivision, and as I was making edits, it was like crashing right there. So I ended up uh, having to reopen the file uh, before I applied the subdivision surface, and going back to do the editing, and I'm going to apply it afterwards. And here's where I decided, you know what, let's just get rid of these n-gons just in case if they become an issue, and also clean it up and making sure the front matches the back. And that's another thing that I could have done too was mirror front to back with the geometry, but since I had these elements not exactly even. That wasn't really like the best case scenario. So that's the final time I ended up doing the mirroring. I found that there was like a little gap in that upper area. So even in these fin areas, I'm not applying any other subdivision surfaces or anything like that. So I don't mind some smaller triangles and larger triangles together. I'm not trying to go like crazy big with the poly count. So I'm fine with the way things are. The thing that I cared about with the smoothness was the central sphere, and everything else could be a little bit more low poly. So now I'm going back and continuing cleaning up. And since I didn't really change or stretch any of the geometry, I didn't have to re UV unwrap or anything like that. So now I'm just kind of like arranging and realigning pieces in order to kind of get a better positioning for the map that I'd like, as well as maintaining the grid flowing in a vertical and horizontal direction when looking straight on the model. So you can actually read all the lettering and the grid kind of flows like an actual grid, as opposed to like a diagonal directional flow. So I'm just going through all the pieces and I end up repositioning, scaling up, and moving pieces around a little bit more because I'm trying to maximize all that. And those little tiny pieces, I'm just like, like I don't care about the pixel density for those little bits that are never going to be like blown up big. It's not going to make a big difference in that kind of case. So I just scaled them up a little bit more so I can get like a little bit more detail into those small pieces. Because I do plan on, well, I did plan on using Substance Painter for the texturing. I have a copy before Adobe bought them out. So just like final look, and before I went to the texturing, I was like, okay, let's get some rigging going, just in case if I just want to like keep it to this for now and use this for storyboarding. So I'm setting up my armature, and a lot of the joints end up being piled on top of each other. So I'm trying to think, okay, what kind of movement and pieces do I want to adjust? So I want a generic root joint so that I can just move it around in 3D space. I have a center of gravity joint, even though like technically it's not accurate, but I'm just used to calling it the cog. So that's also right at the central base of the sphere. The root, I could just actually like bring it down, but it's fine where it's positioned. And then I have a joint that's for the head and the wings, so it's controlling all of that. And then a child from there is just a head joint and then all the wings together. And then I have the individual wings with their own joints. And there was just me weight painting. I'm readjusting the joints, and I was having issues just because I forgot that I hid some of the joints. So I had to like show all hidden joints again in order to be able to readjust. And this is where I'm adding in those extra joints for extra group controls, just to make my life a little bit easier when get to animating it. And I did like some animation. I posted online in some of the places just that would actually hold animated GIFs. So here I'm in Substance Painter now. I finished the rigging and everything kind of moves how I want it to move. And so I'm starting to set up my different groups. So I have a metal group, roughness group, color group, and I should have had an emission group, but I just threw that in with the color area. And within each group, I have my sections. So I have basically like two base colors, base one, base two. One's going to be yellow, this yellow orange, kind of going for like this like gold look, that like richness. And the other is that I call base two. It's this other gray look. So I end up putting in like a quick metal and rough pass just in order to kind of like see how everything's going, and I just get rid of it. Well, I hide it for the majority of this coloring because I want to focus on just the main colors. Um, so I'm just working on my mask, and then I add another color of just like pure black at first for those little like anti-grav strips, and that's what I apply the emission on afterwards. But I'm kind of like just playing around with what silhouettes and sections do I want to break off for these different colors. And you can see like how dense that sphere is. Like that sphere has probably like 95 or 98% of the poly count. So here I'm doing the strip. Usually anything new at this point, I'm going to throw it like a very neon green at first, just in order to, okay, like where is this popping in? And then the nice thing with Substance Painter is I can just adjust the color afterwards. There I was just checking, taking a look at the emission. And on the rig, I could throw in some like lights for the glowing areas, which I might do if I use Blender for future storyboarding. And here I am masking out the areas of that I have for base one and base two, just so that that gold doesn't appear in that secondary color section. And I wanted that extra mask because I can copy and paste that mask into the rough area and the metal area if I want to separate those out as different materials as a whole. Um, So I'm just kind of like setting up my masks at this point with my different pieces when it comes to the textures and the geometry. And I applied a purple base color at the bottom layer just so at least if anything shines through, it'll be like a complementary color, but I kept it like toned down because I didn't want it to like stand out. And now I'm starting to add more to the colors, just so it's not just like a flat tone. And like all of this is not necessary at all for the purposes of what I'm creating this guy for, but I'm just having fun at this point. Adding like that same emission glow and painting in the mask. So I added in two different noise textures, one set to a multiply, the other set to a overlay in order to get a little bit of depth and break up any kind of patterning. Here I end up realizing, okay, like I want a little bit more. So I throw in kind of this like sharpness of it as if it's like a weapon to the body and just to like change up the coloration a little bit more. I wasn't quite happy with where that was. And so I add in a quick little um, metal wear texture, and I have another layer of masking in order to kind of erase out where it wouldn't really wear and tear much. Um, because like this metal wear and tear, it's really going to be on more the edges that are exposed to being hit or rubbed against of different objects. So it wasn't really that necessary to have it on these other extreme edges going in. I did a bake at the very beginning so that Substance Painter has position and curvature and all that kind of stuff for these generators. So now I'm using the position in order to get these a nice little gradient as well, layering in order to break up the flat colors, just in order to get a little bit more interest. And then I apply the same thing for the other base. And I forgot to do it for that blade area, but I'm fine with it. And with that, I'm kind of done. I've saved this. I'm exported the textures and bringing it back into Blender in order to hook everything up in here. So there's the emission I plugged in, and then with the metal and roughness, I made sure to change the color mode to not color, just so that it would actually grab the color images properly. And there we go.